Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Comment Section episode. I won't say it. We don't know how many parts the last episode was. Maybe if we split. I have a feeling
true, because that thing is
I think
way
this
too
is probably
long
going
to be one episode.
I have a feeling this is going to be 82.
Yes.
So welcome to another episode of Comment Section. This time we're going to talk about another one of the greatest superheroes of all time, and a superhero near and dear to my heart, and that is the one and only friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And now the impetus of this episode, we've done lots of Spider-Man specials. I mean, we love the guy. But I think the impetus of this episode, which you came up with, is to come up with our top favorite and rank our favorite versions of the character.
Yes.
Can you expound on that?
Yes. So, guys, 2022 is a very special year for the year of Spider-Man. It is the 60th anniversary of when Stan Lee went into publisher Martin Goodman's office and said, I have an idea for this character called Spider-Man. And he was told, no, that's stupid. Just throw it in the Amazing Fantasy comic that we're going to cancel anyway. And he said, fine. And then, lo and behold, Marvel's mascot was born. It's a definitive thing. That is their most popular character. So 60 years later, still going strong for what was told to be a bad idea. It is also, we just passed it. Well, again, this is also in celebration of this show turning 5 years old, because we started recording on the 15th anniversary of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. And a little bit ago, we passed the 20-year anniversary of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. That's right. I have a feeling we'll be talking about what it was like to go see that movie later in here. Also, in 2 months, I can't believe it's already here. It is the 10th anniversary of the first Amazing Spider-Man starring Andrew Garfield himself.
Wow.
That's right. And if that wasn't enough, I need to check something real quick, because I think I have a double. Okay, never mind. But also in December this year, it is the 100th anniversary, 100th birthday of the birth of the greatest comic book writer of all time, Stan Lee. All those reasons are why we've come together to celebrate the wall crawler, the web swinger, the Spider-Man himself, Peter Parker. So,
heck yeah.
For this special, we decide we're going to rank. Also, it's the 5-month anniversary of Spider-Man No Way Home. So,
yeah.
For this special, we're going to be ranking our favorite versions of the character. What were our favorite movie versions? Our favorite television versions? Maybe our favorite video game versions? Now, what are our favorite versions from the comics? Now, some people, we're giving a little asterisk by this. I figured because it's 60 years of continuity, we'll break up the comic book runs as separate things. So, like, what's one? So, like, the current Spider-Man run that is being done by Zeb Wells, which is only one issue. But even though that's the same versions that Stan Lee wrote, we're breaking them up as two separate versions. So,
yeah, I was considering different writers, different takes on the character.
Yes. Just because
although I only have 2 comic book writers, spoiler alert, because I just don't have that much of a breadth of knowledge.
Yes.
But I did separate 2 writers of the same span.
Yes, I did as well. So, first of all, how many did you have? Because I have a top 10.
I couldn't quite get there. I have a top 7.
Okay, so that's good to know. So, before we get started, should we get one out of the way? What is the worst version of Spider-Man?
let me think. I
don't know if you have a worst version.
I don't know if I have a worst. I've definitely.
Or you have a least liked version.
The worst version is YouTubers dressing up as Spider-Man and doing weird things.
Oh yeah,
that's the worst version. Okay.
Yes, for me, the worst version is the version from the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon that ran on Disney Plus from 2012 to 2017. It was so awful. It just was a piece of garbage. Drake Bell, in my opinion, is the worst Spider-Man actor of all time. And, in light of what's recently come up about him, that was back when he was just a bad actor and not a horrible person. So
yeah, I have to say, from the little I looked at clips of that, I did not care for that.
Why would you look up clips of that?
Well, to be okay, here's the honest thing, and I'm sorry to say this, but like the truth is, in my brain, I kind of liked Drake and Josh back in the day. And so like I sometimes would check what they're up to.
Oh yes. I remember being hopeful for that show, and then the first trailer, I believe, premiered on the IGN YouTube channel, and I watched it and all my hopes died. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know what? I am such a Spider-Man fan that I've decided I'm going to try and get through that show. I'm going to try and sit through it. And I just need to say something. That show last month premiered 10 years ago. I still have not finished the first season. But slowly but surely, I'm getting through that awful piece of garbage. Though I heard it gets better in seasons 3 and 4.
I mean, we'll see if you ever make it to there.
No. I mean, it's rough. You know what the sad thing is like sometimes there are some okay episodes when they have a better guest star like Captain America or Wolverine. That's who you watch it for, because the version of Spider-Man they have in there sucks so much.
Yeah.
All right. Now,
unfortunate.
I don't know if you have any of this, but would you have any honorable mentions? Well, I guess you can't because you didn't have a top 10, but
yeah, I didn't have to leave anything off. The thing though is with the ones I put, like I felt bad with the one that's like down at number 7 because I was just like I mean, this really is my 7 favorite, and I think they're all excellent.
But you don't have like a special honorable mention, like didn't make
it to
the list.
I got an honorable mention.
Okay.
And the reason why it's an honorable mention is because I just don't have enough information yet. And that's that Spectacular Spider-Man, I think it is, the TV series.
Yeah.
I do think it's really good, and I, on your recommendation, watched 2 episodes. And that version of Spider-Man is great, but I just didn't have enough information to go off of to put it officially in my list.
Oh, it's such a great show. I love that show. So mine, I'll just quickly go through them. Mine, I have 3. One is from the Marvel Universe. It is the run of Peter Parker's Spider-Man by Paul Jenkins. And to me, that was one of the 3 comics I would normally buy, because when I was younger, there were 3 comics, and you knew what you were getting with each of the 3. Amazing would tell like stories that happened later. That was where you got the most exciting character development. Ultimate was about younger Spider-Man. Peter Parker Spider-Man by Paul Jenkins, which I'll mention something in a second. That was the one where you got to have all the cool villains. Like he's gonna fight Doc Ock this week. He's gonna fight Sandman this month.
Mm-hmm.
And I did remember something to bring this up. Years ago, in 2002, 20 years ago, I was like, I don't remember where I was, but I was going to buy a Spider-Man comic book. And I was flipping through what they had, because this is back in the days of the spinner racks at the grocery store, which why they don't have that anymore, I don't know.
Yeah, those are sick.
Yeah, like honestly, I went to the airport recently. You can buy porn at the airport gift shop, but you can't buy a comic book.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they know their audience.
oh yes, they do.
I don't know what I'm saying by that, but they know their audience.
Hey, sometimes with those long plane rides, you need some type of entertainment. So there, and I flipped through it, and I was like, it's okay. And then there was this awful line of dialogue where it's after the fight with Spider-Man Green Goblin, where Green Goblin says he thought about calling himself Mr. Coffee, and they both laugh. I was like, that's dumb. I don't want that. So I didn't buy it. But yeah, over the years, I've gotten more nostalgic for the 2000s comics. And like a few times a year, I'll be like, man, kind of wish I had gotten that comic. Well, a few months ago, I was at the comic book store and I was going through the dollar bin because that's where they have some of the old comics, and I found it.
Oh,
And I added it to the collection. It was a
awesome.
20-year search that finally concluded.
that lost love unrequited.
Oh, yes.
By the way, have you ever been to? There's like a comic and old bookstore called I think it's Argos. It's kind of closer to downtown.
I have not. Oh wait, I think I know where it is.
It's like mostly like an used bookstore, but they have a whole side of the store that's all comics. And I was looking through, and like there's some pretty cool issues of like Amazing Spider-Man and some Batman stuff. Like it was pretty cool collection.
Yeah, because the comic store I usually go to, they don't have a lot of older issues. It's more like the current stuff, but I would love to go check that out and see some of the old stuff. You know what I was thinking about? People talk about like how it's so much more satisfying to go to like a record store and find an old record than it is to just like buy it off like a digital purchasing like iTunes or something.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that. Because like I bought an issue of Ultimate Spider-Man on my phone. I was like, that's nice. But a few weeks ago, I found an issue in the comic book shop in that dollar bin. I was like, oh, it was like finding the Holy Grail or something.
Yeah.
So that's great. The other one is Brian Michael Bendis' run from the New Avengers. So my Avengers, when I started reading Avengers comics in 2006, years before everyone else jumped on the bandwagon, was
Posers.
Yes, the lineup was Captain America, Iron Man, Wolverine, Luke Cage, Spider-Woman, and Spider-Man. And for me, ever since I've been reading, when I started reading Avengers comics, Wolverine and Spider-Man were part of the Avengers. So, and I love the version of Spider-Man that Bendis gave us in that run. And the other honorable mention is Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. This was a show that during the time that the first Tobey movie came out, ABC Family would play a bunch of reruns of the old Spider-Man cartoons. And I tuned in for the 90s cartoon, and they had this special like Spider Weekend where they played episodes from all the different eras. And I was introduced to Spider-Man's Amazing Friends. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So there we go with that.
There we go.
Yes. So should we get into our top 10 favorite versions of Spider-Man?
Absolutely.
Yes. So I guess I'll go at number 10, and then once I get to 8, we'll start jumping back and forth after 8.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yes. So my number 10, top 10 favorite Spider-Man. Now remember, I said that for like certain stuff, even though it's supposed to be connected, we're breaking some stuff up. My number 10 is a version that we have from the movies, but in a TV show. Is Spider-Man, the new animated series that aired on MTV starring Neil Patrick Harris, which is supposed to be, it considers itself the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Like, Harry's father is dead. He has the organic web shooters. So now I'm going to be honest, and it might hurt some people right now. Most cartoons from the 2000s sucked. They just did. Like, honestly, we are 2 years into the 2020s? We already got more good stuff than we did in that whole decade. But one of the things I loved was Spider-Man, the new animated series. It was so cool to have a TV version of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And he is the Tobey Spider-Man, but there are some differences. Like, he has a little bit more of Andrew's personality and stuff, but overall it's still supposed to be Tobey Spider-Man. I thought it was really cool to see this more adult version of Spider-Man because it was on MTV. They could go do a little more stuff that they couldn't do in the like Saturday morning cartoons. And they could also do some stuff like they had an episode with Wilson Fisk, which is more crime oriented that you couldn't really do as much because it wasn't the Spider-Man fighting Doc Ock or whatever. Like, it just was a different type of show, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought Neil Patrick Harris was a very good Spider-Man. Although I will say, as time has gone on, he's become a much better voice actor than when he was Spider-Man in here. But overall, he was great. And the animation doesn't look that great nowadays, but it's got that early 2000s charm. Like, yes, this was from that era of Spider-Man, from the Tobey era. Some people can debate about if it is supposed to be canon. It's really an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. type situation. My personal opinion is that it is canon, so I view it that way. And there were some issues that the show would have had if it had kept going because it only lasted 13 episodes. One of the problems it had was that because it was connected to the movies, you couldn't have Goblin or Dr. Octopus, so you're missing the two big ones. But 13 episodes taking place between Spider-Man 1 and 2, it was great. I've honestly kind of, because it's only 13 episodes, I don't rewatch it that much. But after Into the Spider-Verse, and especially after seeing Tobey No Way Home, I've started watching it more again. And it's I like it even more now than I used to. And it's such a great show. So Spider-Man, the new animated series, is my number 10 in the top 10 versions of Spider-Man. Have you heard of this version or seen any of it? Because it is, debatable, but it is Tobey Spider-Man.
Yeah, I knew it existed. I knew that Neil Patrick Harris had voiced Spider-Man. I knew that there was something connected to the canon. I didn't put it together. Like, as you described it, it really intrigued me, although I am not pulled in by the art style. I will say.
Remember, it is 19 years old.
Yeah, it seems like in that era where they were still figuring it out.
Yes.
So that's the biggest thing going against it for me. Other than that, like, this might be one of the like Spider-Man animated series that I would be most interested in checking out.
Oh yeah, it's my third favorite Spider-Man animated series. Just be warned, it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger, even though, cliffhanger, we all know it works out because we have Spider-Man 2 and 3 and No Way Home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so I shall go into my number 9. Number 9 in the top 10 versions of Spider-Man. Some people don't like it, but I don't care. Whatever. It's in my top 10. After the 90s Spider-Man cartoon ended, we had kind of a sequel show happen in Spider-Man Unlimited. That's right. Now, because Sony had gotten the rights from Marvel because they were going bankrupt, the show was in a little bit of a predicament because it couldn't use the Spider-Man costume, couldn't use a bunch of the villains, and I forget what the other ones were, but those were two things against it. So what happened was Spider-Man went on a spaceship to follow Venom and Carnage to a place called Counter Earth. And it's a place where, like, it's kind of like there's these things called bestials, which are animals turned into humans. And, like, the bestials run this city, and they have these giant robots that attack people. It's very post-apocalyptic, and it was like Spider-Man in there, and he's got his new costume that has a cape this time. And overall, generally, I remember being younger and being like, why can't we just have normal Spider-Man? But now, living in the age of, like, home video and streaming where you have all of them, I'm like, you know what? This is a pretty good show. This is a fun watch. And it's a nice continuation of the 90s cartoon. Rino Romano took over for Christopher Daniel Barnes, and I thought he did a great job. He later voiced him in some video games, and there's a deleted scene from an X-Men 2 video game where Wolverine, voiced by Mark Hamill, meets Rino Romano as Spider-Man. So I really enjoy the show. It was really cool. It has some of the best Spider-Man animation. So yeah, I've always enjoyed Spider-Man Unlimited. So assuming you haven't seen it though.
Yeah, no. What era is this again?
This is from 1999.
Okay.
It aired on Fox Kids from 1999 to 2001. Now, it only lasted one season, but they pulled it because Pokemon killed it in the ratings. And they just burned off the episodes in 2001.
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, this one I do like the animation of.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
What do you think of his new looking costume?
Yeah, nothing to scoff at. It's kind of cool.
He's got a cape this time.
Yeah. You know, I'm trying to decide. I think I would maybe prefer it without the cape. It's kind of cool just as a alternate color costume.
Oh, yeah.
But,
one of my favorite episodes is where Venom, Eddie Brock, is dying, and Peter has to, like, get him back with the symbiote, and he wears the black suit again. Oh, it was awesome.
Cool.
Unfortunately, ends on a cliffhanger. But, you know, if it continued, you knew it was all going to work out. So,
yeah.
Kind of like how the movies, they just get canceled. There's never ever a final thing unless you go back years later.
Yeah, it feels like Spider-Man never gets his final due.
Yes. So, I guess I'll go into my number 8 and our top 10 favorite Spider-Man. And then we'll jump back and forth. So, after the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies were canceled because of the cancellation of Spider-Man 4, we were told we were going to get a new version of Spider-Man in the movies. And that is why Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is my number 8 in our top 10 Spider-Men. So, as much as I love 2002 Spider-Man, 2012's The Amazing Spider-Man is my favorite origin story for Spider-Man. It's pretty much tied with Spider-Man 2 as my favorite overall Spider-Man. And I thought it did a great job of taking the Stan Lee, Steve Ditko era and taking so much from Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley. I always thought it was a little special how the Spider-Man movie and Avengers movie that came out the summer of our senior year took inspiration from the comics that came out when we were in kindergarten. So I always thought that was interesting. Yeah. So love the first one. Really like the second one. Even though it wasn't as good as the first one. And then it just kind of stopped until 2021, in which we finally got that part 3, which, I mean, if you look at it, Amazing Spider-Man 2, what was it setting up? It was setting up dealing with the aftermath of the death of Gwen and the villains teaming up. And we got it. We finally got it.
Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
He was my favorite Spider-Man in the movie, and overall, I think that Tobey's movies may have told a more complete story, but when you look at like the story between the three movies, I thought the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man was such a great version. Actually, No Way Home bumped it up to where I loved Andrew's version of Spider-Man. He's my favorite live-action actor to play Spider-Man, so I loved the Andrew Garfield version of Spider-Man. And if there's more, that'd be great. But yet, if this is it was such a great run.
Yeah, and there was quite a bit of closure that came with No Way
Yes.
Home, so at least we have that. Should I get in finally start with my first entry into the list, my number 7, and then you can do your number 7?
Yes, let us do that.
All right, my number 7. I could see you justifying a way to put it on your list, but I don't think it's going to be on it because my number 7 is Tom Holland. And
for me, I just want to say these are top 10. There's so many versions. He's not on my list, but
yeah, there's a lot of versions.
All of them.
But yeah, I had to do Tom Holland as like like even if he's not in the strongest movies, I've always respected the version of I think really you can say even when the writing isn't strong, I think he brings a really good version of Spider-Man that's likable and down to earth, even when he somehow feels like the most relatable character, even when they are on a spaceship. I think, he's the best part of Civil War. He was like the best part of Infinity War. I liked Spider-Man Homecoming. Far From Home wasn't good, but I don't remember very well, but I'm sure Spider-Man was fine.
I have a question. You were rewatching the Spider-Man movies after No Way Home. Did you ever get around to rewatching Far From Home?
No, I've only seen it once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I stopped after Amazing Spider-Man. Didn't
even do Spider-Verse?
Happening. No, but I should.
Yes.
It just kind of petered out.
You were like, Spider-Man's done now. Let's move on to Batman.
Yeah. And finally that brings us to Tom Holland in No Way Home, which is like I have to say I feel pretty comfortable now in saying No Way Home is my favorite MCU film. I think it was like there's a lot about the MCU that's starting to become kind of saccharine and nauseating to me in retrospect. But like No Way Home just felt like, this is a good period on my experience of it. And, Tom Holland really brought a good performance in that. And the first thing I thought of when we were coming up with this list is like, okay, we had 3 Spider-Mans on screen very recently. And like in this case, you have to say that Tom Holland was the weaker Spider-Man when you see the other 2 on screen. But dang if he isn't still a really respectable contender in this list, and that's why he's my number 7.
Yes, so I guess I'll talk about Tom Holland. Sorry, I just got text real quick. Okay, so I'll talk about Tom Holland because he wasn't in my list. Again, top 10. Not everyone's going to make it. Like, I love 60 Spider-Man, but
yeah,
he wasn't. Okay. So I have mixed feelings about the Tom Holland Spider-Man. But in celebration, let's talk about what worked. Mm-hmm. I loved his introduction in Civil War. I think he did. It was such a great version of the character. It felt like a combination of Tobey and Andrew's smashed together with like a little bit of its own spin. It was, I thought, clearly taking a lot, just like Andrews did, taking a lot from Brian Michael Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man run. And I guess New Avengers, because Bendis is the one who made him an Avenger. And he, again, in a movie that had Iron Man, Captain America, and Black Panther, to me, he was the standout. And in Avengers Infinity War, which I was very pessimistic about his role in, he was the standout for me too. Like, I think it really says something. And Tom Holland was very good in a supporting role in those movies. And he was great. And he was, for me, he is the standout of both those movies. Not really Endgame, because it's too small of a role for me to say he's a standout in Endgame. That's more Captain America. So I didn't like Homecoming Far From Home, but I thought he was great. They finally got, in Spider-Man No Way Home, it was finally a movie of the character from Civil War and Infinity War. Like, It's like, yes, it's finally that same character. And I'll just say it. I don't care if it's an unpopular opinion. I think in Homecoming and Far From Home, Tom Holland was too young to lead a Spider-Man movie. Like, I rewatched Far From Home to get ready for Doctor Strange, and I just, like, he was too young. And I think casting him as the third Spider-Man was a mistake, and they should have been the fourth one. However, he is, I think, at the right age now to where he can carry a Spider-Man movie on his own without needing Robert Downey Jr. to help him. And he did such a great job in Spider-Man No Way Home. It's like, as much as I think Civil War is a better movie, No Way Home is, like, there's no debate. That was his best performance as Spider-Man. And one of my favorites, especially because it had so much more substance. We got to see him finally play the drama side. And one of my favorite scenes in that movie is at the coffee shop at the end, where he goes to speak to MJ and Ned, and he decides that their lives are better without him. That was so great. And here's the thing about Spider-Man No Way Home. Even if Tobey and Andrew weren't in it, it still would have been a great movie. That is how much they kind of redeemed that character in the movie. Like, when I watch it, I'm not waiting, okay, where's Tobey and Andrew? Where's Tobey and Andrew? Like, I'm like, all right, here's Spider-Man. Okay, but then here's my old Spider-Man that, I prefer more, but here they are. But yeah, I thought overall we've had, is it 6 movies? Yeah, No Way Home. So
yeah, 6.
Overall, Tom Holland Spider-Man has been a mixed bag, but when it works, it works.
Yeah, I think No Way Home alone is enough to justify his place on my list. So there we go. That's my number 7.
Oh, I have a little thing to say about No Way Home. No Way Home is now, so overall, it's my third favorite MCU film. No Way Home is now tied with Winter Soldier and Civil War as the superhero movie I've seen the most in the movie theaters.
Oh, wow. Did you see it 4 times?
I saw it 4 times.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to see the Batman on my birthday, but then I was like, I didn't like it. So I was like, oh, but Spider-Man's still playing.
Yeah.
And you know what? I finally understand how, like, movies like The Dark Knight Rises and Avengers Endgame made so much money, because No Way Home isn't my favorite Spider-Man movie. Like, I love it, but it's not my favorite. But it was like, this could be our one last time to see them on the big screen, Tobey and Andrew. So
yeah.
So my top 3 favorite MCU movies are tied for the superhero movies I've seen the most in theaters.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes,
makes sense because they're your favorites. So
yes.
So what's your number 7?
My number 7, I mentioned it before, is Ultimate Spider-Man, or Ultimate Peter Parker, from the Ultimate Marvel Universe. This was when I started reading comics. Actually first got it through a 3-month subscription that was in a Spider-Man VHS for the 90s cartoon. It was when we were younger, it was the book of, like, here is a new origin story for Spider-Man. Like, we saw Spider-Man High School, and we got to, when I started reading it, it was right when they introduced Venom for the first time, and I loved that book so much. And then I stopped reading it after they killed him off, which I was just like, why would you do that? Like it felt, and they replaced him with Miles Morales, and I was like, why did you do that? Why couldn't you just ended the book and give Miles his own book? And maybe put him in the regular Marvel universe where he can meet Peter, but whatever. But I remember at our first year at college, Marvel was giving away 700 free issues on their app, which I got all of them. And I started rereading the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and I fell in love with them again. And it felt even fitting that my last year at our first college, they brought Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Peter Parker back to life. That's right. I remember that like it was 7 months of like, because you have to understand, I had given up on Marvel Comics at the time. They were absolute garbage. I was not a fan of their editor, Axel Alonso, at the time. I consider the 2010s in Marvel to be the lost years because they just weren't very good before C.B. Cebulski took over. But like every month, I was counting down for the next issue of the Miles Morales comic that brought back Peter Parker. And I thought it was great. And then after 7 issues, he said he was going to leave and go do and find out how he came back to life because they never really explained it. And he left. And then the Ultimate Universe ended. And I was like, oh, well, okay. But when Bendis left Marvel, Spider-Man number 5, which was his last kind of Peter Parker story that had Miles in it, we saw like a post-credit scene. We saw Ultimate Spider-Man back as Spider-Man fighting the Green Goblin, and now he's a member of the Avengers. And oh, I love that book so much. I am so glad that it felt like a perfect treat. The summer of our senior year at high school to have a movie version of that comic in the first Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie. So Ultimate Spider-Man, I love that book so much. I've been buying it. It is the digital comic I have the most at like 110 issues. And every time I read a new one, I'm like, oh my God, I love this book so much. So
awesome.
That is my number 7. I don't think you've ever read Ultimate Spider-Man, right?
No, more of an Amazing Spider-Man guy.
Yes.
But it sounds like a good arc.
Yes.
So my number 6 is one already been mentioned, and that is Andrew Garfield.
Oh yes.
Yep, Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, as Peter Parker is my number 6. A movie that my expectations were so lowered for probably unjustified reasons. And when I saw it, I was like, this is great. Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, he just clicks with the character. Yeah. It's just every moment of the first act of The Amazing Spider-Man, it just shows his talent at portraying the character. And while The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I'm not like the biggest fan, but it doesn't even really matter because Andrew Garfield is a consistently good Spider-Man. His return, he had the best plot line, the best like emotional core in No Way Home, I think.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah, it just felt like such a cathartic moment. And yeah, it's like it's not the version of Spider-Man that I often think of when I guess I should say for a long time it's not the version of Spider-Man that I would have ever thought of when I thought of Spider-Man. I thought it was good, but kind of in the background. And as time goes on, I really have to give my credit, my due credit, because he just knows how to play the character, and that's why he's my number 6.
Oh yes. So yeah, I love. I've already talked about how much I love the Andrew Garfield version of Spider-Man. Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned it before. I was trying to say it earlier, but the excitement of talking about Andrew's Spider-Man, I really feel like No Way Home has added so much more value to it. Like, I used to be like, well, Andrew's first movie was great, but as much as I like the second movie, the second one, those two just by themselves, I don't think are on the same level as like Tobey's movies. But once you put in No Way Home there and you see like a full arc, it really raised it up. And I thought, loved the Andrew Garfield version of Spider-Man.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it makes it matter more. It's pretty special that we got that.
Even though, like, I would still say, well, you know what? I would always say Tobey's kind of checked it off, but when you look at No Way Home and that final fight where he fights a bunch of the villains, like there's a scene where you see Andrew Garfield being held by Doc Ock's tentacles. That checks off a lot of those checks that I've always had.
Yeah.
So, though, I love seeing him reunite with the Lizard too.
Oh yeah.
You know what scene I've been thinking about a lot? The scene with him and Jamie Foxx where he's just like, you were never nobody, and it's playing that old music. I think James Horner conducted it from the first movie. It just was, I don't know, like the more I think of, like, that scene was such a standout to me. That and Tobey reuniting with Doc Ock.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yes. So, you did Andrew. All right, so my number 6 is the original Spider-Man. That's right, the Marvel Universe Spider-Man by the man himself, Stan Lee. That's right. And we should also say Steve Ditko and John Romita Sr., but we're just, in breaking it up, we broke them up by writers because they switch artists all the time versus writers stay longer. So I'll always remember being at Barnes & Noble and buying the graphic novel, the original 10 issues, plus Amazing Fantasy 15. That is tied with The Dark Knight Returns as the graphic novel I've reread the most. My favorite was the Doc Ock issue, and those issues are so great. They hold up today. There's like a timeless quality to them, except for when they mention how it is 1960 whatever. But so great. They just laid the groundwork for everything the character would be so perfectly. Like, even I think it really says something that even today, like, no one is really adapting the original Bill Finger, Bob Kane Batmans or the Jerry Siegel or Joe Shuster Superman. But we're still getting like adaptions of what Stan and Steve did in those original 30 issues and what he did with John Romita Sr. later on. And they're so great. They like perfectly show the Marvel formula of taking these great superheroes and showing them with down-to-earth, realistic problems. And I love that Stan Lee run so much. I have the original 4 volumes of Marvel Masterworks, and I did recently, I don't know if I can bring it up to show you, I did buy, because they had a big sale around Christmas, I bought volume 11, which has the 100th issue and introduces Morbius the Living Vampire.
Oh, yeah. That's, yeah.
Yes. So there we go. My number 6, the Marvel Universe Spider-Man by Stan Lee. And Steve
Great
Ditko
stuff.
John Romita Sr.
Yeah. Of course, the whole team on that one.
Yes. So are we at your number 5 now?
5.
Yes.
Top 5.
Oh, here we go. This is the big one.
I mean, It's actually the small one because this is, you could argue a smaller role. And
Yeah.
I could see this coming up in your list too. In fact, I'm guessing it will. And that is Peter B. Parker.
Oh yes.
The version of Peter Parker that comes through the multiverse into Miles Morales' universe, and ends up mentoring him and teaching him how to be a good hero, good Spider-Man.
Oh yes. Even though he doesn't want to at first.
Yeah, yes. It's just amazing how much they could pull off on being technically not a main character in a quick animated movie. This character really had so much depth and pretty shining example of, I think, how to do a mentor type character in a superhero film. Really great. And then his sort of motivation, in like he's in such a downward slump that you really feel for him. So his motivation and like his conclusion in that movie, at least, is just really touching, and it's one of the things that makes that movie so great. So there it is, Peter B. Parker.
Oh yes. I'll have to plead the fifth right now. I'm Peter B. Parker. Because he'll come up later. Let's see. So I guess I'll go into my next one. My number 5, and I have it where I'm unveiling it because it's been a week since I've read this. So what is my number 5? Oh yes. Number 5. We talked about Tom Holland Spider-Man. Talked about Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. My number 5 is our original cinematic version of Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Maybe we'll get a little longer in this one since it's the 20th anniversary, but I remember being 9 years old and being like, there's going to be a Spider-Man movie like the Batman movies, and being so excited. I remember the day going to see it, watching on ABC Family the 90s cartoon where Spider-Man fought Morbius, the vampire, and waiting to go to Studio 28 to see the movie. That's how long ago that was.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard. And we live in a very different era now where there's so many superhero movies. And we had X-Men at the same time too, but for us growing up in elementary school in the 2000s and middle school in the mid 2000s, obviously Batman became like, we had Batman Begins at the end of elementary school, and Dark Knight kind of even elevated more. But for us, Tobey Spider-Man was the superhero. He was the superhero, and I loved the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Didn't when it first came out, but a few months later went back and really loved it. I still remember, because my sister brought it up and I had totally forgotten about it. I remember the spider bite being so loud when it first played in the theater. Like, just like shocking. Like, wow, I was not expecting it to be that loud.
Yeah.
And I loved that. Sam Raimi did such a great job. He was the reason why I was excited for Doctor Strange. And I think, honestly, he gave us the best version we were ever going to get of that movie. And Spider-Man 2, it was Spider-Man versus Doc Ock, my favorite villain, but it brought even more. So, like, it is, I think, the definitive Marvel movie. Like, it just is so great. Spider-Man 3, I know some people don't like it. It is my second favorite of the series. Honestly, last rewatch I did before Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, I could honestly say it might be my favorite. Like, I just love that movie so much. Love the Venom Black Suit storyline. And to see him return in No Way Home, like Andrew was my favorite character in that movie. But the one that got me the scene that got me the most emotionally, it like hit me in the feels, was the scene with Tobey and Doc Ock, where you had the Danny Elfman theme play and Doc Ock's talking about you're all grown up now. And to me, I think that Tobey, again, when I rewatched Spider-Man 2, kind of like how I can debate about maybe Amazing Spider-Man or Spider-Man 3 is my favorite Spider-Man movie. I was really like, I'm like, maybe Tobey is my favorite, but overall I maybe lean towards Andrew. But man, he was such a great Spider-Man too. And yeah, unless we have a TV show, I think that Spider-Man trilogy will always be like the cornerstone. Like, that was such a great experience. It really just like told, like, especially now with No Way Home added to it and I Count Spider-Verse as the same character. It just, that Spider-Man, that Tobey Spider-Man is so great. So yeah, there's that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. I'm sure we'll talk about it later.
Yes,
I'm
sure
number
we will.
4. My number 4. I don't know if you'll consider this a cheat, and of course I had little choices to go on.
Honestly, there's nothing that's a cheat. As long as I would have been a little bit like, wait, no. Tobey from No Way Home is still Tobey from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Let's not go that far.
Gotcha. But well, the reason why I say that is because I'm actually picking. I don't think we give this character enough credit, and I had to think of like the movie that might be my favorite Spider-Man movie and the star of that movie, and that's Miles Morales from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And like it's tough because we're seeing someone who's really not Spider-Man yet, but I can't deny the fact that like his journey being a kid and becoming Spider-Man and dealing with everything he's dealing with, and his chemistry with Peter B. Parker. I could have gone either way on which way to order these. I did deliberately put them next to each other, but I mean, even though, I mean, Peter B. Parker really has the thing going for him with what he's going through with Mary Jane and what he's going through back home is a really strong emotional point to the movie. Miles Morales still has his own like emotional things that resonate with me. His relationship with his father, the sort of trauma of realizing the truth about his uncle. I think that in talking about that movie and how great Peter B. Parker is a lot, as we do, I think I sometimes fail to mention just how great I think Miles Morales is. So great lead to that movie. One of, if not my favorite Spider-Man movie. So gotta mention Miles Morales.
Oh yeah. We're talking about Spider-Verse's version of Miles Morales. I love that version of the character. Like, I'll be honest, like I talked about earlier how I was so disappointed with how they killed off Ultimate Spider-Man and replaced it with Miles Morales. That was his introduction.
Yeah.
First impressions are important. And I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I hear about like Miles Morales being in a movie, I get a little, oh boy, are they gonna do it right like Spider-Verse, or are they gonna kill off Spider-Man? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's not like other people who had their introduction in Spider-Verse.
Yeah, my introduction is nothing but good things.
Yes, but I love that version of Miles Morales. I'm so excited to see him in the upcoming sequel, which, oh my god, what another movie that got freaking delayed.
Yeah, that one really did hurt me.
Yeah,
I want this so bad.
Yeah, I don't even remember when it comes. I know it comes out in 2023, but all the superhero movies I was looking forward to, besides Batman, Doctor Strange, have been delayed now. So this year just burst so fastly, but
Yeah, you're gonna have to just find a way to brainwash yourself into liking the Batman. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my
You
god!
don't
I'm
have
gonna get the
anything else this
Blu-ray,
year.
and I really hope that I can have a dinner for schmucks type of situation where I'm like,
Oh yeah,
well, it's not great, but it's better. It's
Yeah.
better than I remember. Like, I was rewatching an episode of The Flash from last year that I didn't think was very good. I was like, it's better than I remember.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
all
I can
you
hope
can
for
hope
you.
for.
I don't know about that, but we'll see.
Yeah. So, oh, by the way, I had to say, did you get anything from Free Comic Book Day? It was 2 weeks ago.
I was so disappointed. On the Sunday morning after that, I realized, I missed it. This is like the first year I missed. I was so upset.
So they redesigned Miles's costume, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't really like it.
And is this gonna what iteration of Miles is this?
In the comics, not the movies.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm sure he'll switch back, but let's see if I can find it real quick on here. Like, I have to be honest, I just am not a fan of the design they've gone with. Like, they've removed his Reb wedding and everything. I don't know if you can see.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Let me be honest, his other suit looks so much cooler, and I'm a bit disappointed. But I'm sure it will be like every other time they change Peter Parker's costume. Eventually, it all goes back, and I'm pretty sure they switched his costume before and it went back.
Yeah, it's honestly interesting to me how obsessed comic writers and stuff seem to be with changing suits, because I'm usually fine with just the normal suit.
Yeah, like, if you want to change anything, like, you want to make Spider-Man's suit, instead of the blue, add black, maybe have his eyes yellow instead of white, I'm cool with that, but
yeah,
it's fine on its own. You don't need to change it.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, Miles. Oh yeah, you talked about Miles. Love that version.
That's my number 4
of the character.
So we're on to your number 4.
Yes. My number 4. Speaking of Spider-Verse, is Peter B. Parker, voiced by Jake Johnson. That's right. We've had a lot of great live-action Spider-Man, but for me, my favorite movie version of the character is Jake Johnson's Peter B. Parker. I loved, I was thinking when I was rewatching Tobey's movies, because I did a rewatch for Doctor Strange, and it was a very interesting rewatch that I chose, because I was like, all right, Tobey's movies, because it's Sam Raimi directing, Logan because of Xavier in it, and then the first Doctor Strange. It was an interesting view-a-thon thing, but I was rewatching Tobey's Spider-Man movies, and I have to say I miss when they were Spider-Man. I'm a bit burned out of high school Spider-Man. I miss when he was Spider-Man, a young adult.
Yeah.
Paying for his rent and stuff. Like, I
taking
really miss that.
Taking this out of context, you could sound like some conservative, like what happened to Spider-Man? Can we talk about that?
Why we got this Spider-Girl,
Spider-Man,
Spider-Woman? I want Spider-Man.
My Spider-Man better have as much testosterone as you can fill that sucker with.
How dare you show Spider-Man crying? He's a man. He needs to bury that inside his soul. But I do prefer having a more adult Peter Parker instead of just another young kid. But
yeah,
I loved how this was a bit of an older Spider-Man. He's married to Mary Jane Watson, and I loved his arc in the movie. Love him going on this journey. I loved how it showed him in a world where he died and going on this journey, becoming the guy he once was again. And yeah, he's my favorite movie Spider-Man. I loved having an older version of Spider-Man, and kind of like how Andrew Spider-Man is a lot inspired by Ultimate Spider-Man. Jake Johnson's Spider-Man, I felt, took a lot from J. Michael Straczynski and John Romita Jr.'s run of Amazing Spider-Man from when I started reading comics. So,
Cool.
love Peter B. Parker. Yeah, my number 4 favorite version of Spider-Man.
Awesome. Then we're at the big top 3.
Oh, yes.
Yep. This is going to be my first straight up comic iteration. And that is all the way at number 3. We talked about it before. Good old Stan Lee.
Oh, yes. Oh, there it is.
Lee. Yeah, I did. I don't know if I mentioned that I found it, but that's right.
I think
you
last
know, it was
time you were reading it from the library, and I was like, why? Don't you have it?
It took me a while to find, but yeah, I was reading it off of my phone. I read them on my phone. I don't have an iPad or anything. Yeah, I
Do
just
they have the guided thing where you can choose the panels?
Yeah, it's the Hoopla app. If you get a library card for one of the libraries near us, either one, I think.
Before
they have
you
tons
say anything, I need to bring something up.
Yeah.
I loved Comixology. I loved the Marvel app, and there was a DC app as well. They got rid of the DC app recently. So now if you want to buy a digital DC comic, you have to get it through Comixology. And recently, Comixology did an update. I'm just going to say something. Amazon ruined Comixology. It is awful. It is such an awful, unbearable experience. I hate what they've done to it. Like, I've spent, I'm not going to lie, hundreds of dollars on digital comics, perhaps even thousands for all I know. I don't know. I don't keep the receipt, but
yeah.
I'm going to be honest. If they ever shut down the Marvel Comics app and I have to deal with this Comixology crap, I'm done with digital comics. Like,
yeah.
Amazon has ruined Comixology. They've done such a terrible job with it.
I bet they have. And I mean, I don't mean to totally shill libraries too much, but I mean, like, I was surprised. Like, I mean, there's Libby you can get that's better for just regular ebooks and audiobooks. But then when I downloaded Hoopla, I noticed just how many comics there are. So I was able to reread, the first 10 Stan Lee. I forget how far I've gotten, but I know for sure that I borrowed and downloaded and read like the 11 to 20, the volume 2,
good.
volume 2 and volume 3. They must have like almost all of like 150 like
wow.
to rent. Like, really, I got enough Spider-Man to for a while.
Yes.
And then some other storylines. But upon reading it, it's like going back. I didn't know necessarily how Stan Lee's, like, the very first version of Spider-Man was necessarily going to hold up with everything we've had. And, I think it takes a certain taste. Like, some people might think that this style of comic storytelling might not have aged well. But to me, there's a huge charm to it. I really like, I like the straightforwardness of the plot. I mean, it's part of what made comics what they are. I mean, it may be in future ones, some people might like some more serious versions, but I just think that this established everything good about the character so well, and so it obviously does that. You're reading some of the stuff that established that, and I've enjoyed everything I've read so much more than I expected to. And it might seem like an obvious choice to put Stan Lee so high in a way, but I mean, I have a feeling, there might be some other future comic artists that fans would probably place above him who will maybe overshadow it. But you gotta give it, like, it holds up. It does
Yes.
hold up to me.
Oh, they're so you can read them now. They're great. I love them.
Yeah.
So you've read Volume 2. The one that sticks out to me the most in Volume 2 is, do you remember the one where it's where Doc Ock captures Betty Brant and her brother, and Spider-Man goes to fight Doc Ock and unmasks Spider-Man in front of everyone, and they think he was just Peter Parker pretending to be Spider-Man?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's just such a charm to these.
Yeah.
Like you could describe them as corny, but it's like
they're great because even like when they're light, there's still some heaviness in there. Like,
they're all
like he's worried about getting Aunt May her medication or whatever because she might die. I'm pretty sure that's in the 10 one. I don't remember. There's arcs where she has like a heart attack, and I don't remember if it's in the first 10.
Yeah. I can't remember. That storyline rings a bell, but I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's Stan Lee. Like there's something about, and of course I gotta say Steve Ditko and not just Stan Lee. This whole team putting it together did great things, and I like personally the old, very colorful style of older comics, and that appeals to me as well. So there you go, Stan Lee. That was what, number 3?
Yeah, I think you're number 3.
Right.
So I guess I'll move on to my number 3 then. For years I always thought there would be nothing as good as a certain beloved cartoon series I had. But yet something came that was wonderful. In 2008, on Kids WB, the final gift from the network before it shut down, we got The Spectacular Spider-Man starring Josh Keaton as the web swinger. I love that show so much. It was like I said, I'm not a big fan of most cartoons from the 2000s, but that was one it felt like it was made in the 90s, left in a vault, and they're releasing it now. Like I love that show so much. It did a great job of. It was like the first, I think, cartoon that showed Peter in high school, because the other ones focused on him more in college. And similar to Andrew Garfield, it did a great job of adapting Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and John Romita Sr.'s run, and pulling stuff from Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley, and such a great show. They did such a great job with both having the episodes be standalone and these great story season-long arcs. It really is a shame that the show legally had to end because of stuff going on between Disney and Sony. But I love that show. I root for Josh Keaton to appear in Across the Spider-Verse. So maybe we can kind of get closure like we have with Tobey and Andrew. Like, come on, this is the one legal way I think they can do it. Like, let's get Spectacular Spider-Man in there. So that's what I'm really, really rooting for. So Spectacular Spider-Man is such a great show.
Yeah. I've like I said, it was an honorable mention. I really like that version of Spider-Man and need to experience it more.
Oh, yes.
All right.
They also took some, I forgot to mention, they also took some inspiration from Tobey's movies too, which was great to see.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, my number 2 is it's a little bit of an ambitious pick because I use just pure facts and logic and data to pick this, because to be honest, what I'm picking is, when I look back at, when I started getting into trying to read more Spider-Man comics, I started with, let's look up the best story arcs and start from there. And I was just like, well, my favorite story arc is this. And when I was reading that, I wouldn't have been able to tell you who had written it, but
I'm excited to hear what the story arc is then.
The writer of my favorite story arc is Gary Conway.
Oh,
and
yes.
What I've read of like that range, it's still very early in the Amazing Spider-Man. It's the hundreds. I've read some of them around that too to give it context. And it's the night Gwen Stacy died arc.
Oh, yeah.
And it has a lot of the feeling of the Stan Lee, where it doesn't feel too distant. But it's also getting more serious, and there's some more heavy things happening.
Besides the bad 70s fashion they wear.
Is
like the worst. That's like the thing from Spider-Man comics that have aged the worst, was the 70s clothes they had.
Yeah, that's
the 60s
true.
clothes aged better than the 70s ones.
Yeah, the 70s was very specific.
Yes.
But yeah, I just have to say, like, cataloging all of the Spider-Man I've read, that feels like a really, really good stretch. It feels like, it kind of feels to me like when you start watching a show and maybe they didn't quite figure it, like it's a really good first season, but they didn't quite get the tone of the character, and things got rolling, and Gary Conway was he the first person to take over after Stan Lee? I think he
don't
was.
100% know.
Okay. But it kind of feels like that section of Spider-Man comics where, they're really getting into the swing of it, and they understood the character. And
it looks like he was the third. It was Stan Lee, then okay. Roy Thomas, and then Gary Conway.
Yeah. And with how good the stretch I read, I was kind of sad to see that he really only was in there. He was really only the writer from about like 110 to 150-ish, about 40, between 40 and 50 issues. But, and maybe some of this high regard putting at number 2 is because of that one fantastic story arc that he said, but it is an era I really like. So this was my entry on the list where I zoomed out and thought, like, well, Spider-Man's a comic series. What have I enjoyed the most? And that was where I came to, is that chunk of time in Spider-Man comics is my favorite.
Yes. So if anyone is interested in more recent Gary Conway Spider-Man, I recently read, it was from 2015, the Amazing Spider-Man Spiral storyline that he did. And it came out in 2015. It's part of the Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3 run. And I recently read it. It's very good. I really enjoyed it. It came out during a time where I wasn't a big fan of what was going on, because I wasn't a fan of the writer, the main writer who was going on. But that one was really good, the Spiral storyline.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out for sure.
Yes. So I guess it's time for me to go with my number 2. Oh, and by the way, his Death of Gwen Stacy stuff is great too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was definitely favorite storyline so far. I have a couple that I think I would really love, and like arcs that I have a couple Spider-Man arcs that are like, I think I'm going to really love that, and it's going to be next on my list, reading list. So we'll see if there's an update, but so far that's my favorite story in Spider-Man.
Oh, yes. So I guess I'll go with my number 2. And just like yours, it's a comic book run. I talked about 2 of the 3 Spider-Man comics from when I started reading, so it only makes sense to have number 2 be my favorite one. It is the Amazing Spider-Man run by J. Michael Straczynski, which he did with John Romita Jr. and I'm sorry, I forget who the other one is, but John Romita Jr. was the main one. And this was the book that showed stuff that happened like after kind of the classic Spider-Man stories. Like we saw his relationship with Mary Jane had kind of crumbled. And it has it where he goes back to his old high school to be a science teacher. And, after growing up, watching the 90s cartoon and seeing the different cartoons, it's a little tough sometimes to be like, what is something new we haven't seen with the character? But Jace Michael Straczynski gave us new stuff, and it was great. And he brought back Mary and Peter Jane as a couple and showed how, like, they help each other through their daily lives. During that run, Aunt May found out he was Spider-Man, and it had it where their Aunt May's house burned down, and they moved into Avengers Tower, and he was the Spider-Man writer during Civil War. And No Way Home is based on one of the most controversial Spider-Man stories of all time, probably one of the most hated, which was One More Day, which wasn't his choice, but he was kind of forced to do it. And there's a Spider-Man comic that people hate, but I think it's pretty good. It's called Spider-Man. I think it's Original Sin that he did. Original Sin. I think that's what it was. Nope, that is not what it was. It was, I don't remember what, it was one where we find out that Gwen Stacy, when she was alive, cheated on Peter with Norman Osborn.
Oh,
and some people were like, what? How dare they do something like this? But I was like, guys, this shows that even if Gwen had survived, Peter was not supposed to end up with her. It shows that no matter, he was always supposed to end up with Mary Jane Watson. So that's how I took it. I loved these stories about like where Peter is like, he knows there's something wrong with one of his students, and he sees that she's homeless and that her brother is missing. He goes to kind of find her, and it was I love that run of comics so much. I'm so glad that, like, when I look at like our 4 Spider-Man movie Spider-Men, they each kind of feel like they're from different versions. Like Tobey Spider-Man is very Stan Lee Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield's is very Brian Michael Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man. Tom Holland in the Russo brothers movies is very much Ultimate Spider-Man and New Avengers Spider-Man that Bendis worked on. Tom Holland in his solo movies by John Watts is very Dan Slott run, right? Where, multiverse, that's what really worked. Jake Johnson's is very much J. Michael Straczynski's run, and I love that Spider-Man story so much. I've been rereading a storyline I haven't. Well, I guess it wouldn't be rereading then, but I've been reading a storyline I haven't gotten to yet by him, and it's so great. So my number 2 is J. Michael Straczynski's Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man. By the way, before I forget, I'm so glad that John Romita Jr. is now doing the art for The Amazing Spider-Man again. Very excited about that.
I mean, I'll have to check that out, compare it with my own eye to see if I agree. I'm sure it's great.
Yes.
So we are to, if you can believe it, I thought we'd never get there. Number 1.
Yes, number 1. Our picks for our favorite versions of Spider-Man.
And mine is, of course,
I have a guess
Dan
what yours is.
Slott. I've never read.
God.
I don't. I just.
Did I mention how much I don't like Dan Slott in here? I don't know.
You have. That's the only reason I know the name. I wouldn't have known the name otherwise.
Yes, though we should be like, he gave us Spider-Verse, so he's written. I mean, sometimes he does write some great stuff.
Gotcha.
He's very much a John Watts type situation.
Well, makes sense. But my real number 1, of course,
I think I know
it was the obvious pick as soon as this list came to mind. My number 1 is Tobey Maguire or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Spider-Man. And, I rewatched this trilogy very recently after No Way Home, and it reminded me, it really kind of made me feel justified in it being my favorite superhero trilogy. And
is it a trilogy anymore? I guess it kind of still is.
Debate.
It's a little gray
with him as
area,
the main
like
character.
the Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah. Anyway, there's some, for how long I considered him the iconic version of Spider-Man, like rewatching it, there were some mental notes that I made that, I could see him, or I could see like Spider-Man fans actually thinking that he's quite a different Spider-Man, or like maybe he doesn't represent what they feel of as Spider-Man, because in a strange way, and it was only rewatching it that I kind of started to feel this, he's another character that's like so uncool and he unsmooth. Like even when he does become Spider-Man, he's still just some kind of a dork to the degree, and the fact that he has kind of a weird bug-eyed face that's endearing.
Yes.
I feel like,
didn't your heart melt when Ned's Lola waved at him and he gave that smile? It's just like, hi.
Yeah, I love it's endearing. He's so endearing. But it's strange. I don't know if I'm crazy saying this, but it's almost like if 10 years later or something, they casted like Michael Cera to be Spider-Man. I don't know if that comparison has been thought of enough. It's like it's that kind of like awkward indie actor sort of thing, as a superhero. And 1, 2, and 3, he's always just kind of this awkward guy who's very imperfect.
He's a nerdy kid from Queens.
Yeah, but it works so well, and I also like, I of course have to say that like upon rewatching it during my rewatch, I maybe liked the first one slightly less than my memory served me. Still one of my favorite superhero movies ever. 2 and 3 I actually liked more than I remembered. But saying that about 2 is impressive, because I had already considered it one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. When I watched it again, and it was even better than the legendary status I had given it in my brain. It was quite a moment. That is a flawless superhero movie to me.
Oh, it is the perfect superhero movie. It is so good.
From front to back, that movie, Spider-Man 2, is a flawless superhero movie. And it's also just the best version. It's Tobey Maguire at his best as Spider-Man. Sam Raimi's best version of directing the story. And like that movie alone is a pinnacle example of why the Tobey Maguire version of Spider-Man is my favorite version of Spider-Man.
Yes. You know what? Just remind me 2 things from Spider-Man 2. One is like it has in mind the best monologue ever in a superhero movie between Aunt May and Peter after she tells them there's a hero in everyone or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I was just watching this. Marvel, they'll kill off Iron Man. They'll do some weird stuff, but they would never have it where like, and sometimes like I remember watching and being a bit surprised that they did this where, after Peter goes into the burning building and saves the little girl.
Yeah.
Like he's like coughing and he's got the oxygen and they're like, nice job, kid. And then we hear the firefighters say like another trapped soul didn't make it out. And then you hear like Danny Elfman's music play. And Toby, honestly, ever since you brought up like Toby's like facial reaction when he stops Tom Holland, when I rewatched him, like he's so good. Like just his facial expressions in the series, like just that moment where Peter is just sitting there and you hear Danny Elfman's gorgeous score play of just like he failed. He couldn't save this one person. And then we cut to him just looking at the apartment and was like, and I think of all of them, like just by himself, like Tobey had like such a perfect voice for Spider-Man. Like it just sounds like when you look at Spider-Man, it just sounds the best. Like his natural voice just sounds the best. And you have it where you're just like, am I not supposed to have what I want, what I need? That's such a great scene. And it's just like it felt real, and it's something the MCU would never do.
Yeah. And I mean also Doc Ock. So
Doc Ock is great in that movie too.
I love that scene so much when Doc Ock first like starts just killing everyone. It's so like Sam Raimi just coming out and making a horror movie.
Doctors who are trying to saw off the arms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's like it's like a shocking scene. It's like we're in a horror movie now.
Yo, yes. Speaking of Doc Ock, like obviously my favorite action scene is the end with the 3. But man, I love that scene with Tom's Spider-Man versus Doc Ock. That was awesome. Just because I love Doc Ock and seeing him in a movie, I was like, all right, rematch time. We're gonna see Spider-Man versus Doc Ock again.
Yeah, well, there's my number 1. Could have been expected to begin with, but
I had a feeling it might be that one.
Deserved.
Once we got into the top 3, I'm like, all right, I think I have a good guess of what it's going to be. All right, so we come on to my number 1. And my number 1 is, it might be obvious if anyone's listening, because there's something I've mentioned a lot. My number 1 pick, and it's hard because so many of these are so great, but if I had to pick my favorite one, it is Spider-Man the Animated Series from the 1990s. Premiered in 1994, ran until 1998. Christopher Daniel Barnes was my childhood Spider-Man, and I love that show so much. It did such a great job of showing young, college-age Peter Parker, and we go through his journey, and like towards like I think the 4th or 5th season, he gets married to Mary Jane, even though we find out it's not really Mary Jane's a clone. But still, we had that. We had him team up with all the heroes from the Marvel Universe, like the X-Men and the Avengers. And we had like all the cool villains like Doc Ock. I loved the Venom storyline they did. And the Lizard was great. It just, to me, whenever I think of Spider-Man, that version, Christopher Daniel Barnes' version, is the version I think of. Anytime I read a Spider-Man comic, Christopher Daniel Barnes is the voice I hear in my head. Unless it sucks, then sometimes it's Drake Bell, even though I try to push it away. But I love that version so much. It was my first form. It was my introduction to Spider-Man. Also my introduction to serialized storytelling. Like, I remember watching it years later and being like, oh crap, all the episodes, they connect. They have these plot threads that keep going throughout the whole season. And yeah, I love that show. That show to me is the definitive version and my favorite version of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I root for him to be in Spider-Verse, the sequel.
Yeah. No, yeah, that would be sick to bring back some of those other characters.
So we talked a lot about Spider-Man. Should we conclude this with some rabbit hole?
I would love to. We'll do a quick rabbit hole.
Yeah,
we got our time out of this list, and pretty solid.
Oh yes. So let me choose 3 good ones. Okay, if you could see Spider-Man team up with any Marvel character in a movie, who would you want it to be?
Interesting. Well, any Marvel character. I'm trying to, like, the obvious one that comes to mind is Wolverine, which, you know what? Give your answer first, and I'll think about it.
Well, you said mine. It would be Wolverine.
That's why I moved it over to you.
Even specifically, well, it won't happen. But Tobey's Spider-Man, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
I can't think of a better answer than that, really. Wolverine would be awesome. Even though, like, it's X-Men in general has never been my go-to. It is the one that, like, I tend to envision the best. And I mean, maybe Captain America, but ultimately I think with Wolverine would probably be my preferred story.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have because they were only one scene together, just another scene with Cap and Spider-Man. It's for a full movie. Who's a Spider-Man villain you'd want in a movie?
I kind of wonder if this was a question we asked in the No Way Home special, because I kind of remember answering the question.
Maybe it was.
Or not being able to answer the question of, like, what's a villain we haven't seen in a Spider-Man movie that you'd like to see adapted in live action. I guess I'll say one of the ones that when I read about it, the top one I mentioned, like, I have a wish, a read list of ones I really want to read. I really do want to read the Kraven's Last Hunt arc.
Oh, yeah, me too.
About it, it just seems really, really cool, and I have high hopes for it meshing with my taste. So yeah, Kraven would probably be my answer.
All right. So, did you ever see the Thor: Love and Thunder trailer? I'm just curious if you have. No?
I haven't.
I was a little bit surprised because I thought, like, before No Way Home, I thought you said Ragnarok was your favorite MCU film.
Yeah, and it's my second favorite MCU film still, so, like, I was certainly looking forward to Thor: Love and Thunder, but I think it's a combination of, like, I think I also feel a little bit done with the MCU. I'm just not that excited. Thor: Love and Thunder would be one of the things to get me to check out another MCU movie. So I'm not saying I won't see it. In fact, I think I'd like to see it, but it more has to do with being a fan of Taika Waititi's work, and I must say, like, I have other solid things of his. Like, he's doing a lot of work lately, and a lot of it is good. And I don't necessarily think that this is the Taika Waititi thing to look forward to.
Yeah, like, I have to be honest. I was hoping for I think I can say overall, I think Doctor Strange is okay. But I was really hoping I'd, like, leave it being like, all right, let's go see Thor: Love and Thunder or Ant-Man. I'm just like, when it was done, I was like, it's okay. I enjoyed the Sam Raimi parts, but this thing has really just run its course. But I have seen the Thor: Love and Thunder trailer, and I'll just say it's the worst trailer I've ever seen for a superhero movie. It's awful.
That's bold words. I'm interested in seeing now. I want to try and piece together why you think that. So
I mean, it is so bad.
I mean, yeah, I'm a little nervous that they are taking maybe they're like, oh, this is the one that's, like, Marvel is known for being jokey now, and this one we can feel free to let it loose and just go for it. That's what I'm expecting, and maybe what I'm a little nervous about.
There's a problem when Star-Lord is more serious than Thor in the trailer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right. Would you want Tobey or Andrew to return in the MCU?
I think I've said this before, but I feel like Andrew I would see more in the MCU. I guess I don't want them. Well, No Way Home is so good, though. Yeah. If maybe if they were like, let's do round 2 of a Spider-Man movie with other Spider-Men in it, I would be down.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. Part of me is just like, it had such a perfect ending. Like, I felt like it just was so wrapped up. Like, some people are like, no, don't bring back Iron Man. It was the perfect ending. I'm like, what are you talking about? Or don't bring back Cap. It was perfect ending. I'm like, well, it sucked. So luckily he's coming back. But just like, I think it, like, I don't know. It just feels so wrapped up so nicely.
It felt very much like closure.
Like, I'd prefer, honestly, I'd rather have it be a Spider-Man 4 or Amazing Spider-Man 3 than just bringing them back into the MCU.
Yeah,
Especially after Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness did stuff I genuinely don't like with this multiverse stuff.
Yeah. Overall, don't overdo it. You had a good thing with No Way Home. They don't need to be brought back again.
You know what? I'd love for them to be brought back in Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
All right. Well, these are our last 3. Rank. Oh no, we'll do this. Do you think the MCU is coming to an end soon? Because I have this thing I want to pose to you. With Multiverse, I think there's a 25% chance they're building to a Secret Wars movie, like everyone else thinks there is. And I think that Kevin Feige is also going to leave and be in charge of Star Wars. And I think that the next Avengers movie, I think there's a 25% chance it's done. And that once a new person comes into Marvel, they're going to want kind of like a new director. Like, right, we had Christopher Nolan do his thing with Batman. Now Matt Reeves is doing his thing. I think a new person will take over Marvel and want to do their own thing. So I think Secret Wars is coming. I think it will be Avengers 5. And I think that will be like the definitive end of the MCU that started in 2008.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I could go either way on them doing that, or like just, new one comes out, keep like sort of milking it. I could see either one happening. I feel like with the somewhat Marvel exhaustion, I think that it would make a lot of sense. It would make sense to me that a new person coming in would be like, hey, I want to do my own thing because I don't know if this is working anymore, and I kind of just want to do my own thing. Similar to, like, Matt Reeves, seeing what there was and kind of going like, I really only want to do this if I can do my creative vision. And I feel like that's what someone would want to do if they were in charge of Marvel.
Yeah. So, I thought I was gonna say something. Oh man, I'm blanking on it now. But all right, we'll move on to our last ones. All right, rank what you'd want. We did this with Batman, so rank what you would want. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 4, The Amazing Spider-Man 3, or MCU Spider-Man 4.
This is tough. I feel like in the past I might have said that I'd like Amazing Spider-Man 3 because we'd get a little more of that, but like there is really good sense of closure with the end of Andrew's version of Spider-Man's story. Like that was a good cathartic way to end it. So at this point I'd feel pretty safe saying I want Spider-Man 4.
And then what are the other two? How would you rank?
Oh, ranked? Then
yeah,
Amazing Spider-Man 3, followed by an MCU.
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna go with the whole list you had because even though I loved Andrew in the Amazing Spider-Man No Way Home, I felt like he was such a standout. And I love Tobey in the movie, but I'd love one for Tobey finally gets to be the standout. So yeah, I'd have Spider-Man 4, Amazing Spider-Man 3, and then MCU Spider-Man 4. All right, this is it, the grand finale. What would you like to see? Because he was in your list of top favorite Spider-Man movies, eventually they'll have to get around to him in live action. How would you want Miles Morales introduced in a live action film?
It's interesting. It feels like, they've already done like starring the movie around Miles Morales and then introducing a mentor character. So introducing as sort of the reverse, like maybe there's a film about an older Spider-Man and he's looking for like more of a legacy passing, like mentoring people to, do what he does himself. I think the way I'd want him introduced is like kind of the reverse of Into the Spider-Verse, I guess. Just for something different. And it would be, also an excuse to have maybe a story with a bit of an older Spider-Man. But more about Miles Morales in the comics and the different ways that he is introduced. My thinking is based off of Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah. So, I'll just get this out of the way. Tom Holland, way too young to have Miles Morales. I almost think Andrew Garfield's at the age where he can maybe start thinking about Miles Morales, but I would want to have, because of how much I love J. Michael Straczynski's run, I would love to have it where Miles is a student in Peter Parker's science class. I mean, it would be a little bit of a change because he doesn't go to Brooklyn Academy, but you can have it where Peter is, science teacher to Miles. That way they have some type of a connection. And then, you'd have that big reveal of when like Spider-Man is trying to like help Miles, and then he takes off the mask and is like, I trust you and stuff, and be really, really cool because Miles gives like Peter also like a new depth that he brings out something that we don't normally see in Spider-Man as a mentor type character. So that is how I would like to have it be done. I don't really need it to be like, I have no interest in having them kill off Peter Parker and having him be replaced by Miles. I don't think in live action, I think because animation is more for the hardcore fans, we don't need to do the multiverse stuff. So that's how I would have it done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good.
Yes. So guys, there we go for our special anniversary episode of Spider-Man. So many anniversaries. I believe, now I may be mistaken, but I believe we both said our favorite versions were the first versions that introduced us to the character.
Oh, yeah. Human nature.
Oh, yes. It never
fueled by nostalgia.
Remember your first.
That's what they say.
Yes. So there we go. You know what? We still got 2022 is the year. So many anniversaries for Spider-Man. Watch some movies. Rewatch some cartoons. See a new cartoon for the first time. Skip Ultimate Spider-Man, the cartoon. But, Sony's been doing a great job promoting the 20th anniversary. It'd be nice if they re-released it in theaters, the first one.
This is a random thought. Should we end this episode with one recommend?
One recommend? Yes.
Yeah, this came to mind. I don't know if you've seen the new, true crime thriller thing with Andrew Garfield. Very, very good.
It is. What service is it on?
That's Hulu. Yep.
Oh, okay.
It's starring Andrew Garfield as this Mormon detective guy trying to find a killer. He's really good in it.
Oh, yes.
And he also is for the first time maybe looks kind of older. Like maybe this version of Andrew Garfield would be able to mentor Miles Morales.
I saw a picture and I was just like, did he age 10 years between No Way Home and this? But it's probably got his makeup or something.
Yeah, something like, but it's good. So.
Yes. So that is your recommendation.
That's my recommendation. Just thought it was tangentially related to Spider-Man.
Yes.
It made me think of it for.
Let me try and think of something related to Spider-Man. You know what? I'll go there. Go to Disney Plus, and if you want to see a really great story told, watch season 3 of Spider-Man the Animated Series. If you want to see something like holy crap, like a big climax episode, the season finale with the Green Goblin is like one of the creepiest versions of the Goblin. Like there's like it's the one where he finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and I think Neil Ross voices both Osborn and Goblin. He does a great job that episode. So guys,
cool.
There we go.
Season 3. That is it for our Spider-Man special.
Yeah, Spider-Man 60th anniversary special, also 20th and 10th and 100th for Stan Lee. So there we go. Our voices are sore. Our throats are dry. We're done. We can't do anymore. Paul, pay us a little bit more for a bottle of water or something.
Yeah. I actually, I don't know where it came from, but I have a penny in this room, so combined.
Oh yes.
We're kind of
we've
swimming in cash.
Our budget.
But yeah, that is gonna have to be it. Voices shot. Glad we got to celebrate this character.
Yes.
And be positive and cool. And this has of course been comment section. And
yes. And how do you know? Because every once in a while, like Mary Jane or Gwen, well, hopefully not like Gwen Stacy, but hopefully like Mary Jane, if you fall from the top of a building, hopefully
don't break your back.
A rabbit nearby. Oh yes, a rabbit nearby that won't cushion the fall, but extend it as you wait for Spider-Man to catch you. Why is that? Because as we do all the time on this show, you have fallen and you will keep falling down that rabbit hole.